Her phone lit up on the counter like a flare in a dark room. One message from D turned my home into evidence. Friday nights are supposed to be easy. The gate clicks open, the neighborhood lights sit low and warm, and the week drains out of your shoulders on the drive up the cul-de-sac. I'd put out 3 fires at 3 job sites since Monday. Subs late. Concrete pour pushed. A client who wanted minor changes that would have meant ripping out a whole staircase. I came home anyway thinking about dinner and quiet and my wife moving around the kitchen like she owned peace. Valerie had music on, soft, domestic, harmless. The smell of garlic and something simmering. She glanced at me over her shoulder, smiled too quickly, and asked how my week was. Same, I said, and kissed her cheek. She smelled like soap and perfume and a life I'd paid for. I set my keys down. Phone in my pocket, still buzzing from emails. I told myself I wasn't going to look at work again until Monday. I told myself a lot of things. Her phone was on the counter near the cutting board. Face up. Screen dark, like it wanted to be seen. I went to the fridge for water, and that's when it lit up. One notification. A name I didn't recognize. D. The preview line sat there bold as a punch. 8 works. I missed that little noise you make when you... My brain tried to protect me. Tried to file it under the wrong number, stupid joke, something out of context. But there are certain words that don't belong in a marriage unless both people are in on them. I stood still. Water bottle in my hand. Heart steady, like my body hadn't gotten the memo yet. Valerie's back was still turned. She kept humming with the music, tapping a spoon against the pot like we were normal. I didn't ask her about it. Not yet. I watched her shoulders, the tension hiding under them. The way she kept looking at the stove clock like it owed her something. The phone buzzed again, smaller, impatient. I picked it up like it was a tool, not a landmine. The screen unlocked with her face. Of course it did. She'd set it up. Trust made things convenient. The thread was there. Too much sweetness, too much familiarity, too much time between lines. My name didn't appear once. I scrolled just enough to confirm what my gut already knew. I didn't rage. I didn't tremble. I didn't give her the satisfaction of seeing me crack before I had the full shape of the problem. Calm is a weapon if you know how to hold it. I typed with my thumbs like I was placing a bid. 8 is perfect. Come through the front. He's out. I stared at the words for a second. Not proud. Not ashamed. Just focused. Then I hit send. The little check mark appeared, clean and final. Valerie turned around right then, as if she'd felt the air shift. Everything okay? She asked, too casual, wiping her hands on a towel that was already clean. I set her phone back on the counter exactly where it had been. Yeah, I said. Long week. I'm gonna wash up. I walked to the hallway without hurrying, without looking back. In the bathroom mirror, I didn't see my husband. I saw a man standing at the edge of something, deciding how to step into it. 8 o'clock wasn't far. Neither was the truth. Valerie plated the food like she was auditioning for a lifestyle magazine. Seared chicken, roasted vegetables, a salad that had no business existing in December. She'd even lit the stupid candles we only used when company came over, the ones she said made the kitchen feel expensive. The remodeled kitchen was expensive. Quartz counters, soft close drawers, the big island I'd argued about because I wanted function, not shine. I'd paid for every inch of it with early mornings and hard hats and contracts I fought to keep. Now it looked like a set. She set my plate down with 2 hands, careful. Like one wrong move would shatter something. Thought you'd like this, she said. Looks good, I told her. I sat at the table where we'd had 100 normal meals. She sat across from me, posture straight, knees together, the picture of a wife. But her eyes didn't settle. They flicked, corner to corner. Stove clock, front hallway. Her phone, face down this time, beside her napkin like it was asleep. I cut into the chicken and chewed. No flavor, just texture. Valerie took a bite and barely swallowed. She pushed vegetables around her plate like she was organizing them. Her leg bounced under the table, subtle but constant. The old habit she had in college when she was nervous before exams. I knew her habits. I knew what she was saying, or I thought I did. "So," she said, and the word came out thin. "How's the Milton job going?" I watched her mouth form my life like it mattered. "It's fine," I said. "Inspection got bumped. We'll pass it. Always do." She nodded too fast. "That's good." Her hand drifted toward her phone, stopped halfway, came back to the fork. A reflex she tried to hide. I talked about work because it's what I do when I need to sound normal. Permits, material pricing, a supplier trying to jack up the rate on lumber again. I kept my voice steady and my pace easy, like I wasn't counting minutes in my head. Valerie smiled at the right moments, but it didn't reach her eyes. She kept glancing toward the hallway like she expected footsteps. My own phone sat in my pocket, silent. I didn't touch it. I didn't need distractions. I needed her to keep being herself long enough to hang her own rope. "You want wine?" she asked, already halfway standing. "No," I said. "I'm good." She froze for a half second, like she'd planned the wine as part of a script. "Oh, okay." She sat back down and took a sip of water, then another, too quickly. The glass clinked against her teeth. Small sound, loud in my head. I ate because it gave my hands something to do. I asked small questions about her day, about errands, about whether she'd talked to her sister. Stuff married people ask when they're not busy lying. She answered, but her answers were short, trimmed down to nothing. Her gaze kept slipping to the stove clock. 7:38, 7:44, 7:51. Every few minutes she'd shift in her chair like she couldn't get comfortable in her own skin. I didn't accuse. I didn't press. I didn't give her any reason to change plans. Instead, I watched. I let the silence do work. At 7:53, her phone vibrated once on the table. Muted, but not quiet enough. Her fingers twitched like a dog hearing a whistle. She flipped it over in one smooth motion, checked the screen, then flipped it back like it had burned her. "Everything okay?" I asked, polite. She swallowed. "Yeah, just my friend. Stuff. Her friend." I nodded. "Okay." I let it sit there between us. The lie, small and casual, like she'd been practicing it for weeks. She tried to smile again. Failed. Took another bite. Chewed too long. Didn't swallow right away. At 7:58, she stood up to clear plates that weren't finished. "Let me help," I said, standing too. No, I've got it," she said quickly, too quickly, and her hands shook just a little as she stacked the dishes. I watched her at the sink. The water ran. She didn't wash anything. She just let it run, staring out the window over our backyard like she was waiting for headlights. In that moment, I understood something clean and ugly. She wasn't nervous because she felt guilty. She was nervous because she was excited, and she was scared she'd get caught. My jaw tightened once. I released it. 7:59. Valerie dried her hands on the towel, then checked the hallway again. She tried to act casual, but there was a tilt to her body like she was already moving toward the front door in her mind. I leaned against the island and looked at her like I loved her. My calm wasn't kind. It was control. The house held its breath, and the clock clicked toward 8 like a hammer being pulled back. 8 o'clock hit and the doorbell sounded once. Clean, confident, familiar. Valerie didn't move. Her whole body went rigid like she'd been caught mid-breath. The color drained out of her face in a slow pull, like someone dimmed her from the inside. Her eyes snapped to me, then away, then back, searching for an exit that wasn't there. I pushed off the island and walked toward the front door at an easy pace. No rush, no hesitation. My feet were quiet on the hardwood. Behind me, she managed a sound. Not a word, just air. "Bryce." I didn't turn around. At the door, I looked through the side window first. Habit. The same way I check a job site before I step into it. A man stood on my porch holding a small bouquet of roses like he'd seen too many movies. He was dressed like he cared about being noticed, button down, nice shoes, the kind of watch guys buy when they want people to think they've arrived. I knew his shoulders. I knew the way he stood. My hand stayed on the doorknob for a beat longer than normal, just to feel that last second of ignorance die properly. Then I opened it. Derek Cole blinked like he'd been hit with a light. My project manager. My right hand on 2 builds. The guy I'd brought into client meetings because I trusted him not to embarrass my name. The roses tilted in his grip. He looked past me, just for a fraction, and I saw his face tighten when he realized Valerie was home. Then he looked back at me and tried to assemble a sentence. "Bryce," he said, too quiet, like saying my name might soften the situation. I kept my voice level. "Evening, Derek." His throat moved. I thought you were out." I finished for him. His eyes flicked again, helplessly, toward the foyer, toward her. That was all the confirmation I needed. Not suspicion, not theory, plan. I stepped back and opened the door wider, polite like I was welcoming a vendor. "Come on in," I said. Derek didn't move at first. His feet stayed glued to my porch like the wood could save him. Valerie finally appeared behind me, stopping just far enough away to pretend she hadn't been waiting. Her voice came thin. "Derek?" He swallowed hard, roses still in hand, and for the first time he looked like a man realizing the job he took was going to cost him. I held the door open, not because I was kind, because I wanted them both inside when the truth started talking. Derek stepped inside like he expected the floor to give way. I closed the door behind him and turned the deadbolt. Slow, deliberate. The click wasn't dramatic. It was final. Then I took the roses from his hand without asking and set them on the entry table like trash someone forgot to carry out. "Living room," I said. They both moved because my tone didn't invite debate. Valerie sat on the couch, hands folded tight in her lap. Derek hovered, unsure where to put himself, then dropped into the armchair across from her like he'd been assigned to it. I took my usual chair, the one I sit in when I'm reviewing bids or telling a superintendent we're behind schedule. Familiar position, control point. For a second, nobody spoke. The house was quiet except for the faint hum of the refrigerator and Valerie's breathing trying to sound normal. I looked at Derek first. "How long?" His eyes widened. "Bryce, That's not an answer," I said calmly. "How long?" He opened his mouth, closed it, then tried again. "A few months." Valerie flinched like the number hit her. I nodded once as if I'd expected it. "Where did you think I was tonight?" Derek glanced at Valerie, then back at me. "She said you were working late." Valerie's lips parted. No sound came out. I haven't looked at her yet. I kept Derek where I wanted him. "So you came to my house, past the gate, past my neighbors, holding flowers. For my wife." Derek's shoulders sagged. "It wasn't." I raised a hand, not angry, just stopping him. "Don't minimize it. Own it." His throat bobbed. "I'm sorry." "Sorry is what you say when you spill coffee," I replied. "This is something else." Finally, I turned to Valerie. Her eyes were glossy, but I didn't care. Tears can be real and still be a tactic. "Tell me," I said, voice steady, "what you thought would happen when you invited him here." She stared at the carpet. "Bryce, I didn't invite." I leaned forward slightly. "Valerie, don't." That single word landed heavier than any shouting match. She swallowed hard. I didn't think you'd find out." There it was. No regret. Not concerned for what she'd done to me. Just fear of consequences. I sat back. "Derek, you work for me. You've been in my trucks. You've had keys to my sites. You've shaken my hand." Derek looked sick. "I know. And you still did it," I said. "So the question isn't why. The question is what kind of man you decided to be." Silence stretched. Valerie's hands started shaking. Derek's roses sat on the table like a joke. I didn't have to raise my voice. Politeness was enough to make them crumble. Derek finally tried to fill the silence with words. "Bryce, listen," he started, leaning forward like he could talk his way back into being respectable. "I never meant for it to." I held up my hand again. Same motion. Same stop. "You're done," I said. He blinked. "What?" "You're done here," I repeated, voice even. "You're leaving my house. Right now." Valerie looked at me like I'd slapped her. Derek's face tightened, confusion turning into panic. "Bryce, please," Derek said. We can handle this like men. I'll resign. I'm handling it, I said. Like a man. Stand up. He hesitated. I didn't move fast. I didn't square up. I didn't posture. I just looked at him the way I look at someone on a job site who's about to make a bad decision. Derek stood. I walked him to the door, not dragging him, escorting him. The quiet was worse for him than any shouting would have been. The deadbolt turned. The door opened. He paused on the threshold, clutching empty hands now because his roses were still on my table. "Bryce, I'm sorry," he said again, voice cracking. I met his eyes. "Monday, 8 a.m. You show up to the office. You'll collect your last check and sign what you need to sign. You don't step on another one of my sites. You don't call my crew. You don't contact my wife again." Valerie made a small sound behind me. I didn't acknowledge it. Derek's jaw flexed. "If you tell people." I leaned in just enough that he could hear me without Valerie hearing every word. "I don't have to tell anyone," I said. "You already did." His face went hollow. I stepped back. "Get off my porch." He walked out like the ground hated him. I closed the door and turned the deadbolt again. The click echoed through the house. When I turned around, Valerie was standing in the entryway, arms wrapped around herself like she was cold. "Bryce," she said, voice shaking. "Please, just..." "No," I said, and it wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. She froze. I walked past her into the living room and picked up the roses. I didn't throw them. I didn't dramatize it. I carried them to the kitchen and dropped them into the trash like they were food gone bad. Then I washed my hands at the sink, slow and thorough. When I turned back, Valerie was still standing there, eyes wet, mouth trembling. "You don't get comfort right now," I told her. "You get questions." She swallowed. "Okay. How long?" I asked. Her eyes darted away. I waited. No pressure in my voice. Just time. "A few months," she whispered. "When did it start?" I asked. She shook her head like the truth hurt her teeth. "After your company party. In September." I nodded once, filing it away. "Where?" Valerie's cheeks flushed. Shame finally showing up late. "Hotels," she said. Once at the model home after hours." My stomach tightened, but I didn't let it climb to my face. "Using my sites," I said, calmly, like stating a fact on an invoice. "My property. My name." She started to cry then. Real sobs, the kind she couldn't fully control. I didn't move toward her. "How much did you spend?" I asked. "What?" she gasped. "On him," I said. "On yourself. On the lie." She stared at me like I was speaking another language. "I don't know," she whispered. "You're going to," I replied. "Tonight." She shook her head, tears falling. I watched her steady. This wasn't a fight. It was an audit. And I wasn't done checking the books. I didn't sleep. I didn't sit on the couch and stare at a wall like a man in a movie. I went to my office and closed the door. The room smelled like cedar and printer ink. My desk was clean because I keep it that way. A man can't run a company if his workspace looks like a junk drawer. I sat down, opened my laptop, and let the shock harden into something usable. First, bank accounts, our joint checking, our credit cards, the business accounts that shouldn't have been touched. I pulled statements and searched for what my gut already knew would be there. Charges that didn't match our life. Hotel names popped up in a neat little font like they were nothing. 2 nights at a boutique place in Buckhead. 1 at a chain off Windward Parkway. Another in Midtown. Dates that lined up with girls' nights and work dinners Valerie had mentioned without thinking. Then the small stuff that added up. A lingerie store. 2 purchases in the same month. A perfume brand she told me was on sale. Rideshares at times she claimed she was already home. A dinner bill for 2 at a steakhouse I'd never taken her to because she said it was overrated. I opened a spreadsheet and started logging everything. Date, vendor, amount, notes. Simple, clean, no emotion in the columns. Next, phone. I didn't need to be a hacker. I just needed to be married and paying attention. Shared plan. Shared access. The carrier portal gave me call logs, numbers, timestamps, durations. It didn't show the content, but it didn't have to. Derek's number appeared over and over like a heartbeat. Early morning calls. Late night calls. Midday calls during times Valerie was supposedly running errands. Short bursts like check-ins. Then longer calls on nights I'd been on site late. Patterns are louder than confessions. I saved screenshots, exported PDFs, backed them up to a folder with a name that made me feel nothing. Valerie. Documentation. I uploaded copies to a cloud drive and emailed a backup to an address Valerie didn't know existed. I wasn't being dramatic. I was being careful. People get stupid when they realize they're caught. When I finished, I leaned back in my chair and stared at the screen. It wasn't one mistake. It was maintenance, scheduling, planning, a second life that required reminders, coordination, money, and lies stacked on top of lies until it became normal. That's what hit hardest. Not the sex, not the texts, the normalcy. She'd been eating dinner with me in this house while she was managing a calendar that had Derek in it. I closed the laptop and sat in the quiet. My hands didn't shake. My chest felt tight, but it wasn't weak. It was pressure. The kind you use to set a beam straight before you bolt it down. I stood up, opened the door, and looked down the hallway toward the bedroom. Valerie was in there somewhere, probably crying, probably rehearsing explanations. I didn't care about explanations. I cared about outcomes. And now I had what outcomes require. Proof. Ryan Bennett picked up on the second ring. "Talk to me," he said. No greeting. He heard my voice in the silence. "It's over," I told him. "Valerie's been with someone. I have proof." A pause. Not a shock calculation. "That's why he's good at what he does." "Are you in the house?" he asked. "Yes." "Good," Ryan said. "Do not leave tonight. Don't give her an opening to claim you abandoned the home. Keep it calm. Keep everything documented." "I already started," I said. "Save copies somewhere she can't touch," he added. "And don't put hands on anyone. Not him, not her. Let them be the messy ones." I stared at my closed office door. "What's first?" "First is protecting your position," Ryan said. "Second is the kid. Third is filing before the story gets rewritten." "Georgia," I said, like it was a curse. "Georgia," he agreed. "We'll move smart. You keep your head. I'll handle the paper." "Tomorrow?" I asked. "Morning," he said. "Send me what you've got. Tonight, sleep if you can. And Bryce, don't negotiate alone." "I won't," I said and meant it. I ended the call and sat there for a second with my thumb resting on my contacts. Ethan. My son didn't deserve this phone call, but he deserved the truth more than he deserved a polished lie. I hit call. He answered groggy. "Dad." "It's me," I said. "Are you awake enough to talk?" A beat. "Yeah. What's going on?" I kept my voice level because if I broke, he'd have to hold it, and that wasn't his job. "Your mom and I are separating," I said. "It's not your fault. It's not because of you. It's because she made choices that ended the marriage." Silence. "Then, what choices?" I exhaled once. "She wasn't faithful." His breath caught, small, sharp. "Are you serious?" "I'm serious," I said. "I'm not calling to drag you into details. I'm calling so you hear it from me, straight. I love you. That doesn't change. Your life stays intact." His voice went tight. "Where are you?" "In the house," I said. "I'm handling it. Do you need me to come home?" The question almost cracked something in my chest. Not because I needed saving, because I remembered how fast kids grow up when adults fail them. "No," I told him. "I need you to stay focused on school and keep your head. If you want to talk, I'm here. If you're angry, I get it. But you don't have to choose sides to tell the truth." He swallowed hard. "Okay." I nodded even though he couldn't see it. "I'm proud of you. I'll call you tomorrow." "Love you, Dad," he said, voice rough. "Love you too," I replied. When the call ended, the office felt smaller. But the purpose felt bigger. I wasn't fighting for pride. I was fighting to keep my life from being stolen twice. I showed up before the sun because I always do. The office was quiet. Just the hum of the copier and the smell of coffee someone hadn't earned yet. I didn't tell the crew anything. I didn't text. I didn't post. I didn't need noise. I needed procedure. I called my controller into my office and asked her to sit in. Then I had HR print the termination paperwork and Derek's final paycheck. Clean file. Clean exit. The kind that holds up when people start lying. At 7:58, Derek walked in like he'd been awake all night and still didn't understand what he'd done. Eyes red. Jaw tight. The swagger gone. He paused when he saw the extra chair and the folder on my desk. "Bryce," he said, trying to sound steady. "Sit," I replied. He sat. I slid the folder across the desk without opening it. "You're terminated. Effective immediately." His face twitched. "For what cause?" I held his eyes. "Violation of company policy. Conduct that destroys trust. You know what you did." He swallowed. "You can't do this without." "I can," I said, calm, flat. "And I am." He leaned forward, voice sharpening. "This is personal." I didn't flinch. "It became professional the moment you used my house, my schedule, and my employee role to do it. You were paid to protect my work. Instead, you undermined it." Derek glanced at the witnesses, then back at me. He was doing the math, what he could say, what he couldn't, what would expose him. "You're ruining my career," he muttered. I nodded once. "You did that. I'm just not covering for you." I pushed the envelope toward him. "Final check. You'll sign the acknowledgement. You'll return all keys, access cards, and any site documents. Your company phone gets wiped today." He stared at the envelope like it was a bomb. "You're going to tell them," he said, voice low. "I'm not telling anyone anything," I said. "I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. People notice what I don't say, Derek. In this business, silence is loud." His mouth opened, then closed. He wanted to fight, but fighting meant explaining. He signed. He dropped his keys on my desk with a small clatter that felt like a coffin nail. I stood. "Walk out. Don't come back." Derek stood slowly, eyes hard with humiliation, and left without looking at anyone. When the door shut, the office felt normal again. Paper, coffee, calendars, deadlines. But outside, the industry was already a living organism. People talk at supply houses. People talk at inspections. People talk on job sites when the day drags and the radio's low. By lunchtime, I saw the shift in the way my foreman looked at me, quiet recognition. Not curiosity, respect for how I handled it. Nobody asked for details. They didn't have to. All I had to do was what I'd always done. Protect the job, protect the name, protect the men who show up and do it right. And when vendors called later asking if Derek was available, my answer was simple. No. No rant. No story. Just a refusal to recommend. In construction, that's a death sentence that doesn't leave fingerprints. Divorce doesn't feel like heartbreak. It feels like invoices. Ryan handled most of the talking. I sat in conference rooms with neutral carpet and bad coffee while strangers reduced my marriage to line items. Assets, accounts, equity, the house, vehicles, retirement. A life I'd built with my hands turned into a checklist. Valerie showed up looking smaller than I remembered. She tried to catch my eye more than once. I didn't give it to her. There's a point where you realize the person you loved is gone, or maybe never existed the way you thought. Either way, you stop feeding the ghost. The negotiations weren't clean, but they were controlled. The evidence mattered. The timeline mattered. The money mattered. The choices she made stopped being private mistakes the moment they hit our shared accounts. When the judge finalized it, the words came out plain. No thunder. No justice speech. Just a decision and a signature. The split favored me in ways I won't pretend didn't matter. But it still cost me something. Walking out of the courthouse, the air felt colder than it should have. Not because I was lonely, because my body had been braced for a fight and the fight was suddenly over. I drove home to the same gated neighborhood, the same quiet street, the same front door. Inside, the house felt wrong, like someone had moved the furniture in my head. Every room held an echo of what I used to believe, so I changed it, not in a dramatic weekend makeover. Methodically, like a man rebuilding after storm damage. I hauled out the dining table and replaced it with something heavier, simpler. I repainted the bedroom. I boxed up the photos that lied. I converted the spare room into a home gym, rack, plates, mat, the kind of equipment that doesn't comfort you, it corrects you. I started therapy, not because I wanted to talk about feelings, but because I wanted my mind back under my control. I learned the difference between grief and rumination, between pain and permission. I set boundaries like framing walls. No calls without purpose. No conversations that circled the same guilt. No soft landings for someone who set fire to the house and asked me to admire the smoke. Ethan came over more often, not to be the man of the house, just to sit, eat, talk about school, complain about his coach, ask questions he didn't know how to ask. I answered the ones I could. I stayed steady for him because steadiness is what a son remembers. Weeks passed, then months. One night, I came home, killed the lights, and sat in my chair in the living room. No TV, no music, just quiet. The silence used to sound like loss. Now it sounded like peace. Not because nothing had happened, because I'd finally stopped pretending it hadn't. Valerie's betrayal didn't end my life, clarified it. And once something is clear, a man can build again.